I'm Marcia. I'm a software engineer, and I'm here to share my journey of how I went from knowing absolutely nothing about coding to hired as a software engineer in 4.5 months. So for some backstory, previously I was an agronomist, so that's pretty much like being a plant doctor for farmers. I decided I wanted to make a career change because I was tired of the very long hours and unpredictable hours and schedule, and I really wanted to focus on one day having a family, and I just knew having that type of work schedule just wasn't going to work out for me, and I just was no longer feeling passion in the career that I had. So that is why I decided to make the change, and I'm very thankful and grateful that it cost me $0 and I didn't even have to go get another 4-year degree or any sort of certification to go land myself a opportunity as a software engineer. So how did I get started? Obviously, I used google.com, and at first I just started typing and learned how to code. And you guys probably know what these are. I think the first thing that came up when I started Google searching was free Bootcamp, and it's a free resource. I really enjoyed it, and I think that's when I wrote my first line of code ever. It was just hello world, showing up on a JavaScript web page, and then after that, I knew I needed something that was a little less hand-holding. I loved free Bootcamp, and then I think I tried Code Academy as well, the free version. I'm not sure if it's still free anymore. And it was a great introduction to what like CSS, HTML, JavaScript meant, but I felt like it held my hand too much. So like if you asked me, hey, now go make a website, I wouldn't know where to start. So I was looking for something that didn't require as much hand-holding, but forced me to really learn. And I was very lucky that somebody recommended me to look up the 100 Devs program. Now, if you're wondering what the heck is 100 Devs, I will link them below, and I'm also going to post the link to learn everything you need to know and get everything you need. It is a free community-taught resource coding bootcamp, so it costs you $0, just your time. And I really love the instructor, Leon Noel. He does a phenomenal job, and I am so blessed that him and all the moderators have taken the time to create this free resource for literally anyone in the world. As long as you have internet access, you can access 100 Devs. And it is in this program that I was taught what to use, what to download, and pretty much get off to the races and start coding. And the thing I love about 100 Devs is that it is a job placement program. Like, obviously they teach you the skills to be a software engineer, but the main goal of the program is to land you a job. I also really appreciated the fact that they force you to freelance, so you get some work experience, so when you do go apply for a job, you're not applying with zero experience. One thing I really loved about 100 Devs is that since it is online and it's all on YouTube, fun fact, and I will link that below, is that I could watch the videos or classes anytime I felt like. So I used my phone a lot. I don't recommend this, but I drove a lot for my old job as an agronomist, and I would literally have my cell phone with YouTube app up, and it would be playing the classes, and I would just pretty much listen to them. And then later that night, since I worked like anywhere from 40 to 120 hours a week, I would then grab my old MacBook. Yeah, this is it. It is a 10-year-old MacBook Air, so definitely nothing fancy. And I would then try to go attempt and code on VS Code. Speaking of equipment, so you do not need anything fancy at all to get going. I think that's a common misconception that if you want to be very good at coding, you need like the newest, brightest, shiniest MacBook or Microsoft laptop, but that is not the case. I am still using my 10-year-old MacBook Air, and I think I'm doing pretty successful. I'm able to code and get the job done. And other than that, I use my iPad, totally optional, but I really enjoyed using my iPad for taking notes and staying on top of the homework, because there is homework that is part of 100 Devs, and that helped me a lot. But they give you a lot of resources to make sure you stay on top of things, so I wouldn't worry too much, and that's my main takeaway on equipment. You definitely do not need any fancy equipment to do very well as a software engineer. Like I said, I used a 10-year-old MacBook and I was completely fine. So please don't feel like you need to go out and buy like $3,000 worth of a laptop, keyboard, and all that shiny stuff. Obviously, if you can, it does make life easier, but it's definitely not a necessary. I think the biggest problem that I see when I'm talking to people that are trying to learn to code is that they find a million, and there probably are a million different resources on how to code, and they just kind of bounce around. I highly recommend, I don't care if you go the Bootcamp route or if you use something like Code Academy or CS50, that's another great program that you just pick one and you stick to it. I can go into more detail about all the other options that are available, so if you guys are interested in that, please comment below. But I went the route that I went because, one, it was free, and then two, I really liked that it was community taught. I never felt like I was alone, but that's just because I'm a person where I have a hard time self-studying, and sometimes I get stuck on something, and I have a really hard time working past it. So being community taught was a huge thing for me. Now, how do you get ready for a job? So, like I said, my 100 devs experience made it so I had to get a freelance opportunity, which I did within my own community. And once I had a couple of freelance opportunities as a software engineer, I leveraged those on my portfolio on GitHub, and then I began what I called my training. So I would solve a Code Wars challenge at least twice a day, every single day, and I would push the solutions to GitHub. If you're not sure what that is, check out my older videos, and I'll continue to post more on how to solve those coding challenges. Don't feel bad. I want you to know right now that the first probably 100 problems that I ever did for Code Wars, I ended up like crying or freaking out because I just could not figure out how to solve them. But do not give up. Just keep going, keep trucking through. Eventually you'll get it, you'll see the pattern, and now I just like laugh that I ever cried about it because I look at a code problem and I barely have to think and my brain just knows what to do. So don't be discouraged, and if it feels like it's hard, that's okay, because it's true, coding is hard, but do not give up. So yeah. Now, how did I do it so quickly? I think that's a common question I get is, this program is, I think, about 9 months long to go from 0 to hired, but I did it in 4.5 months. I will have a disclaimer though, what I did to accomplish this was not healthy. I sacrificed my mental health, I sacrificed free time with my friends, family, and I was pretty much all by myself just studying. But it was definitely worth it. If you asked me would I do it all over again, I would in a heartbeat. So let me back up on how I was able to do it so quickly. So I would have my YouTube app pulled up on my cell phone because I drove a lot in my last job. It was a farming job, and I would just have the videos playing all the time. And then after I would listen to the videos and really try to understand what was being taught, I would go home and I would open up my laptop and I would attempt to try to code along. And I went at a rate of like 2 classes a day, so that's like 6 hours of video, at least, bare minimum, and then I'd probably do 6 hours a day trying to code, to stay up on top of homework and try to follow along with what was going on in the class. So I think, let's see, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, because this would be during the work week. So 30 hours in the work week, and then I think I do like anywhere from 6 to 12 on the weekends. So I think in total I averaged about 36 to like 40 hours a week just dedicating myself to learning to code. So that is why I was able to do it in 4.5 months. And I also think I started the freelancing like ASAP. Like as soon as I found out there was freelancing, I already started looking for opportunities. And what I used to get those opportunities, I used Upwork. I will put a disclaimer on Upward. It is a race to the bottom when you're new, but you never know. I always say you don't know till you try, and then obviously word of mouth. I made sure to let everybody know I was looking for an opportunity, and I was very lucky that a friend of somebody had something for me. So that helped me a ton. I already had a freelance opportunity in the very early stages of my learning, and then after that, I think sticking to the schedule and just grinding it out and understanding that I was signing up for 40 hours a week of studying is what got me to be successful. So yeah, I did get sick. I will admit to that. After this was all done and I landed that job, I remember getting like super sick, like the second weekend of like my first week at work. So yeah, so a little bit of a disclaimer there, but I get it. Sometimes you gotta grind and do what you have to, even if it's not the best thing for other parts of your life, and I don't regret it at all. Now, I often get asked, how is the interview experience for somebody that doesn't have a degree in computer science? Did I get rejections? Stuff like that. So I think I applied to like 10 different opportunities, and I got 3 interviews, and one went really well, and the other 2 were actually horrible. So let me get into that. I highly recommend, though, that you guys do LeetCode or Code Wars, because literally I saw the same exact questions that popped up for all 3 of those interviews, and then be very good at behavioral interview. So I have to disclose that I do have a 4-year degree. I actually have a master's degree in crop and soil sciences, and then a bachelor's in agribusiness management. So I think any software that's out there that filters, I still made it through, even though I didn't have a quote-unquote computer science degree. I had a scientific degree, so I think that helped me, so keep that in mind as I'm telling you this. So I just used Indeed and LinkedIn mainly to apply, and I made sure to make my search local. Like, I looked for hybrid roles versus like remote roles. I stayed away from like the Amazon, FANG, Google companies of the world, just because that's just not my style, and I also just knew as a beginner I'd be a lot more competitive in my local market, because I live in a place where it's very rural, it's very country. I live in the Midwest, and I'm glad I strategized that way, because I was able to get actual interviews, and I'll tell you about one of them that I just already knew that I wasn't going to go work for them. It was like a robot that was doing my coding interview, so like it wasn't like a real human. I wasn't talking to a real human when I did my coding interview, and I already knew like I wanted to be done. And some of the questions, like I got them right, but because I like misinterpreted it, I didn't get it fully right, and I just really wish there was a human there. The other interview that I did that went horrible was the people were just not nice. They were very condescending toward me, and I already knew that we weren't vibing in there, so obviously I didn't go with them. And then my third interview, I knew I wanted to go with them because they could tell I was so nervous, and I actually made a mistake on my technical interview, and he was going to become my manager, was so kind to actually like stop me and go, hey, you told us that you wanted to go actually do this, make sure that you end your loop. And I made the correction, and obviously I got it right. So I'm really glad that I went with who I did go with, just because I knew they were nice and that they were kind enough to point out a mistake and help me through it versus just let me sink and drown. So that's how I knew that this was the place I wanted to go to. So yeah, don't be afraid to go on ahead and click apply. I think imposter syndrome is another thing that I see that stops people from achieving the goal of getting a job in tech. And I found, at least in my experience, having a unique background that wasn't a computer science background helped me stand out as an applicant. Once again, though, I was only applying to roles that were local in my area, so keep that in mind. So I think it's very important that you practice, get used to talking about yourself, get used to talking about your unique experiences, and of course, understand that interviewing is also a two-way street. Like I said, I'm so glad that the other interviews went bad because I learned that I did not want to work with people that would set me up to fail already first thing, and they don't even know me. So imagine what they would be like if I were to go and work for them. So yeah, just remember that when you're interviewing, it's a two-way street, not just a one-way street. So yeah, but I feel like my experiences at 100 Devs definitely prepared me for what I needed to do when it came to the interview, and especially on the job. But yeah, I think it's very interesting that even though I knew no Python, so the job that I ended up getting, the interview was going to be in Python, and I knew no Python. So 100 Devs only teaches you JavaScript as the language, but the cool thing about coding is that if you know how to code, and once you master the syntax, you can easily transfer it over. And lucky for me, I think JavaScript is way harder than Python. So I literally grabbed that YouTube video, it's called Python for Everybody, and I just sat there for, I think I started on like Thursday night when I knew that I had a technical coding interview in Python for Monday, and I just like watched that video non-stop. And I think, yeah, I then gave it a try, I think Saturday, Sunday on Code Wars using Python, and the syntax is what tripped me up, and but around Sunday night, I felt like I got it. I think I crammed like 40 hours of videos all in like 3 days. Once again, I don't recommend it. It was really hard, but I'm glad I did it. And then Monday, I went and interviewed, and since I applied for an entry-level role, the coding question wasn't that hard. I think it was pretty much they wanted me to create a function, and it would spit out only even numbers, and yeah, it was pretty cool, and I was so nervous. Obviously ended up accepting that offer, and I'm still with them almost 2 years later. So I'm very thankful and grateful that I went from full stack engineering, which is what they teach you, and I think it's very good that at 100 Devs they make you learn full stack development, but I ended up becoming a back-end Python software engineer and more of a data scientist role. I guess my official title is EDI developer, and pretty much I take files, so like think CSV, text files, Excel files, anything you can think of, and I manipulate that data and then get it into a format that we like, and then I use something like an API or sometimes the UI of software and get the newly manipulated data to go there, and I also keep copies of everything that I do on a database, so I also had to learn SQL. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I had to also learn SQL in like 3 days too, but I think it took me a day to understand SQL, and the cool thing about like SQL is that it's pretty much the same. So now every day I use Postgres, so I guess my flavor of SQL is that I use Postgres, but I could use it for like MySQL or anything else, so I really like that. And I really enjoy the power of having SQL on a database. I feel like you can just do so much with it, and now I'm so spoiled because of Python and SQL, I can't go back to using Microsoft Excel or Tableau. I really do mean that. My life has changed so much for the positive since I learned to code. So I am in a remote role, and I just love that I can wake up and I can work at my job from anywhere as long as I have Wi-Fi. I really like that I'm always challenged every day, but within my means. I also really enjoy that it is a 9-to-5 job. I guess it's a big deal to me because before I worked in farming, I also worked in the restaurant industry, and not knowing your schedule and going from that to like exactly knowing, hey, I'm gonna clock in at this time and clock out is a big deal, and also to have like great benefits and of course very nice pay, especially for an entry-level role, like mind-blowing. So I'm very blessed. My quality of life has gone up incredibly. Like now I have time to and of course money and resources to enjoy my hobbies. I really love horseback riding, and I wasn't able to pursue horseback riding when I was in my old careers or even when I was going to college because I just didn't have the time, money, and energy, where now I can thanks to software engineering. Other ways it's changed my life, I love that I can just have the confidence to automate away anything that I want, and if I have a cool idea in my head, I think it's just wonderful that I can just build it. Like if I have the idea, I've got the power and the tools to just start with a blank page and build something out of it. I know it's hard to explain to my friends and family that aren't interested in coding, but there's something really powerful about having an idea and then just being able to make it real and have it show up on a website or your cell phone. I think that's a different type of power. And I feel like not just power in what I'm creating, but I also feel like I now have a lot of agency and power over my time and life thanks to coding. So yeah, I get asked often when this happened. I think I'm trying to think back. I started learning in June of 2022, and then I got the job November. Yeah, my first day was in November of 2022. So yeah, I am very thankful and grateful that I got through it and learned to code when I did. I get asked a lot now, is it worth trying to learn how to become a software engineer because of the tough job market? And I do want to shed awareness on that. So I don't think it's too late. I also don't think it's oversaturated. I get a lot of people asking me, do you think artificial intelligence is going to take over and it's not worth me learning? And I can tell you confidently that the artificial intelligence that we have will not be replacing any software engineers anytime soon. And you can even try this too. You can take some of the coding questions and ask like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever is out there, and they get it wrong. And in general, those language learning models, they just can't catch edge cases like at all. And they also can't catch nuance too. So there's no way it's going to take over any jobs anytime soon, or at least I'm pretty confident in the next 20 years I don't see it doing anything unless something totally incredible happens, but I don't think so. I also don't think it's a waste either. I feel like even if you go through 100 devs and you realize, hey, becoming a software engineer isn't for me, or you use any kind of free program to get yourself to learn, I don't think it's hurting you. I think if anything, it'll help you to say, hey, I actually do know some SQL. I do know how to do some basic JavaScript. I don't think those skills will ever hurt you. They would only help you. So no, I don't think it's ever a waste of time to learn anything new, especially software engineering skills and coding skills. I think that's transferable in almost any industry. And I feel like the demand is going up. A lot of people, they only think of like Google, FANG companies, but there's so many companies, so many industries that they're now tech companies. Like I feel like even McDonald's, they got an app now. Everybody has an app. So food companies, medical, just any industry that you can think of. Supply chain is really hot. They all need software engineers or somebody with that skill. So it's not a waste of time. I think, no, you should be pursuing it, even here in 2024. And 100 Devs is still going. They actually have a new cohort. So if you want to give it a try, I feel like that's a great place to start. Or you can watch the free YouTube videos that are already up. Knowing how to code is and will be an in-demand skill. I don't think you should let all these doom and gloom videos and media like convince you that it's not worth learning just because there are layoffs. I get that that's a thing that happens and it is a cycle, but if you've noticed, and maybe you should look at this closely, a lot of the people suffering the layoffs, they are in like a FANG company, like a tech company. And what I mean, like when I say tech company, like the main product is the tech. So like Facebook, like the tech is the main product. And I feel like a lot of people sleep on or they overlook like McDonald's, Home Depot, or especially your smaller companies that are like in like a small town. or not like a small town, you know what I mean? Like it's not like in a New York City type of town, like it's in a large city, but a little more locally. I feel like a lot of people overlook that there's a whole wide array of companies and they are always looking for somebody with tech knowledge. And I think, if people could kind of focus their shift to that, I think they'd see that there's a lot more opportunities. I think being able to network is a huge thing. One thing I like about the 100 Devs community, which I didn't do, but they highly encourage you to network and network your way into a job instead of just clicking apply. But in the community, they call it being a clicker. Obviously, I'm a clicker, and it worked out for me, so I guess take it for what it is. But once again, though, I focused on only clicking apply on jobs that were local to me and at companies that weren't like these Fortune 500 companies. But I'm not saying you don't go for them just because you're new, because I know a ton of people that, just like me, had the same background in education as me that were able to land a job at Amazon or a Fortune 500 company, but it just wasn't my scene or my style, so I didn't go for it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't at all, so no. Yeah, I think those are the main questions that I get. I'm trying to think of any other questions. So if you're watching this video and you're still thinking, yeah, I definitely want to get into it, but I haven't done anything about it, not sure what I want to do, or not sure what to do next, I highly recommend that no matter what, you go download VS Code if you haven't done so already. There's also a free code editor that works online. That's a great resource. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but I will go research it and link it right here in this video below. And I think get used to an IDE. I recommend VS Code just because it's universal and also it's free. Obviously there's Spider, there's like a whole PyCharm, there's a whole bunch of other ones, but I think before you start going and chasing shiny objects, just use VS Code. It's the industry standard, and get familiar with it. Even if you don't know what you're doing, go on ahead and create a GitHub account. You don't have to do anything, just create the account, set it up, and keep the login and password somewhere where you can get to it, and then when you're ready, start pushing your code to VS Code, and download GitHub Desktop. I'm going to get some hate for this. Sometimes people will tell me, oh, you're not a real software developer because you're not using the command line to go push your code. I found it very confusing and scary, and honestly, I made a mistake one time, like merging branches using the command line, and ever since then, I just use GitHub Desktop, and I've never made that mistake again, so yeah. A couple people can come at me a little bit, but whatever. I think it's just much better to use GitHub Desktop than using the command line, but you know what? If you're all about the command line life, go on ahead. If you're all about command line life, obviously do what's best for you. So yeah, I'd say make sure you have VS Code and GitHub set up. If you're just watching this video and you're like, oh, what should I do? I think that's a good actionable step if you haven't already. And then if you haven't already, make sure that you have a program and you're just going to stick with it. Once again, I can't recommend 100 devs enough, but you can pick whatever is going to be best suited for you. And then after that, have a game plan. Definitely plan it out. I don't care if you use Google Calendar, I use my iPad. Just know when you're going to study and that you're just going to commit to this and be consistent. I feel like the only reason I got better at coding is because I was consistent at it. And eventually the stuff that was hard became easy, and then you just kind of build on the skill. Coding is a very cumulative type of learning. What you learn in the beginning just kind of piles and piles and piles on top of each other. I guess I can go into pros and cons of being a software engineer. Let's start with the pros. So obviously the salary, you can look it up right now on Google, but it's very easy to start in like the 70K to 100K range as a beginner, like knowing nothing, and then you can build from there. I think it's still possible, but not as easy as it used to be. Like, don't be expecting like 500K salaries unless you're going to go work at a place like Netflix and you're like high up, but never say never. I still think it's a very lucrative career. It's also ranked as one of the most happiest careers when it comes to like work-life balance, and I definitely see why. And I like that you're always a constant student as a software engineer. Let's go into some cons. I think a con of software engineering is that you are stuck like in a small like space when you work. I work out of my home office, and yeah, sometimes it can feel like a prison, but that's why I think it's so important to schedule breaks, schedule time to look away from the screen, and also make sure that you're taking care of your hands. I think that gets overlooked. Another con of software engineering is that you got to constantly be working on the skill. You can't let it slide. I don't think it's one of those things where you can stop for like a year and then just come back to it. I feel like you have to continuously keep learning on it, but I like it. For me, that's a positive, but I can see that as a con for some people. Some main takeaway points that I want to make sure that you come away from after watching this video, which is number one, find a program and stick with it. I think, once again, this is the biggest mistake that I see from people. Do not give up, especially when it starts to get hard. I feel like that's what stops probably like 80% of the people that I see try to attempt to code, is that they hit a roadblock and they quit before really taking the time to get to understand it or get help that they need. Number three, make sure you have some freelancing opportunities set up for you. That's what's going to set you apart when you're on the job hunt. Number four, don't get distracted by shiny objects. You don't need the latest, newest, greatest gadget or tech even to be successful. And I think number five, and this is super important, have a schedule or plan for studying, and you need to stick to that. It's that's what's going to get you to be successful, especially when you're learning something like how to code. You just have to be consistent and have a set time for it. I think if you can follow those very five important rules, that's going to set you up for success way more than all the other people that are trying to learn how to code.